Lesson 6, how to use variables to communicate with the robot and making sure that you remember the Python types. So, what are the Python types? You have watched a video about strings. Strings are treated as words even if they look like numbers. So if you've got a string of numbers, oh, that was a funny way to say it. If you have numbers inside quotes, they're going to be read in as words. They're not going to be read in like numbers. And numbers, you can define numbers as integers, which you know from your math lessons are whole numbers, or you can define them as floating point numbers, which are real numbers. They can have a fractional part. It really makes a big difference how you define them. Okay, so now let's think about variables. What is a variable? In math, a variable is a letter like X or N, which stands for a number that we don't know yet. Now, in computers, it's not necessarily a number. In computers, a variable can be anything. So, how does the computer deal with variables? Okay, so first of all, in some languages, you always have to declare your variable. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not used to this thing. You have to declare your variable. In other words, what you are saying, you are telling the computer that I am going to call something X, or I am going to call something name. I'm going to use X because it's quicker to write, but in general, try not to use X and Y and N and single letters for your variables in Python. Give it a word that means something like, for example, name. Okay? But just for the moment, we're going to use X. So the minute you put in your program, X equals whatever, you have declared a variable. You have told the computer that you are going to call something X. Okay? And I just left a wiggly line there because I didn't want to put something in, but now, that wiggly line, let's make it real now. Let's say X equals 5. Okay, so you add this line to your program. What your computer is going to do is somewhere in its memory, it's going to find an empty memory space, and it's going to put X inside there. I didn't want to do that. It's going to store your variable name in a specific memory spot. Then, when you write X equals 5, it's going to find another empty memory space, and it's going to store the 5 in. I'm sorry, I'm not used to this new thing of mine. It's going to store the 5 in there. And it's going to say, hey, X, every time you want to know what you're worth, go and look in this place, and you will find out what your value is. Okay? So it stores the variable name in one place, and it stores the value for that variable in another place. And it says, hey, X, this is where you find what your value is. No. Now, the other important thing that you have to remember is this equals thing. You could say X equals 6, at which point this value would change to 6. Or you could say X equals X plus 1. Now, in math, that's crazy. In math, you can't say 5 equals 5 plus 1. That is lunacy. So what you've got to understand is this equal sign does not mean the same thing in computer as it means in math. That equal sign is an assignment sign. It's saying, for the moment, I am giving X this value, but it could change. Okay? It's an assignment. It's an assignment. So those are the two important things. Oh, and I forgot to say that when you give X a value, you are initializing your variable. So when you declare the variable, you're saying, hey, computer, I'm calling something x. And when you initialize it, you say, hey, computer, right this minute, x is going to be equal to 5, or x plus 1, or whatever it happens to be. Okay, so that's a really important thing that you need to know about dealing with variables. Okay, I got a bit ahead of myself. I just did that. Now we're going to move over Python. We're going to start using variables. And the first thing I want you to remember is that we are now going to start writing programs. Up till now, you've been using the shell, where you type in a value, 5 times 3, and you hit enter and you get a value. We're going to move out of the shell. What you're going to do is you're going to click File, New File. And it's going to give you an empty page without your little arrows. And this is where you're going to write the program. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to write a program to ask the user what their favorite color is, and then print out, oh, I like that color too. Okay. So because we aren't using the robot for this, we don't need the first 3 lines of the robot programming. We can just go straight into the program. So I am going to call my variable favColor for favorite color. Okay. And I'm going to say, I've now declared my variable favColor, and now I'm going to initialize it. I'm going to use the command input. The input command is followed by brackets, and look at the tooltip. It says read a string from standard input. Okay, so I'm going to make a string. Okay, and it's actually going to print the string out in the shell. I'm going to say, what is your favorite color? Okay. And then because I've got an opening bracket here, I need to put a closing bracket here. The brackets must match up. Okay. When I run that, run module, now I've got to save it. And the thing is, I've got to save it inside a file I don't have here. Give me a minute. Okay, so you've got to save the file into your Finch Python folder, because otherwise it won't work. I'm going to call this variable. Okay, and it says, what is your favorite color? And I can type something in, but nothing's going to happen because I haven't told the robot what to do with my favorite color yet, not the robot, the computer. Okay, so now we know that works, so let's carry on. So now I can say print, and print also takes a bracket and it tells you exactly what to do in the tooltip. I'm going to say print, and I want it to print a string first. It's going to print I like, and I'm going to put a space in, close that. Now, that's the first thing it's going to print, and now I'm going to have it print the variable out. I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to put the variable name. Okay, I want it to print favColor, and then I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to say 2. And I'm going to close my string, and I'm going to close my bracket. Okay, let's see what happens now. Run the module. You're going to save it. What is your favorite color? Let's put blue in this time, because it's a variable. It can be anything. I like blue too. Okay. Isn't that cool? Okay, so now, if you want to do numbers, you've got to remember that the input command reads strings. So if you want to use a variable for a number, so let's declare a variable called number. And if I say input, what is, oh, what did I leave out? I left my quote out. There, now it turns a pretty green. What is your lucky number? Oh, I left the quote out. Naughty, naughty, those colors really help because you can see when things go wrong. And then you say print, and just randomly, let's say number divided by 2. We are now going to get an error message. Let's see what happens. Think about why we're going to get this error message. My favorite color can be green this time. Let's have my lucky number being 3. And I get an error. And the type error says unsupported operand type for string and integer. Okay, so I was trying to divide a word by 2 because input reads strings. So we've got to change it. Now I could put int in a bracket. Now we've got 2 opening brackets, so we've got to have 2 closing brackets. If I do that, I'm going to get an error message because 3 divided by 2, well, I'll get a wacky answer. Let's see. Run module. Okay. What is your favorite color? Let's say, oh, what happened there? What is my lucky number? 3. It did give me a good answer, so that's fine. Okay. If you wanted to be sure, this is Python 3. Python 2 would have not given you that answer. Okay. So, but if you want to make very sure that it's going to get treated as a number that can have decimals, then you can declare it to be a float. Okay. Now you have all the information you need to do the assignment. The assignment is a little different from this, so make sure you read it carefully. Have fun.